How are you both doing?
Very good.
Thank you for squeezing me in for the, I heard I have a triple slot now. That might not be true. I want to start by saying how much I love the movie. It's just so fantastic. For the two of you, though, can you talk about those like first conversations maybe when you first met and what that dynamic is? You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, I'll just say that I'm very grateful because back in early 2015, I met with Jim in Washington. We went to NASA headquarters. We actually met at the Air and Space Museum, and for the following 3 years, he has had to deal with continuous questioning, pestering. He's had to read innumerable outlines and screenplays, and has faithfully given comments and answers throughout the process. His book is incredible. More incredible is Jim himself, who is just a wealth of knowledge and has the keys to the kingdom in terms of knowing who to talk to. And given how much we felt the urge to get this right, to live up to Neil's standard, both on the technical side and also on the personal side, I couldn't have done this without Jim.
Well, if Josh had been a doctoral student of mine in space history, and I had a number of them, he would have been the best one. I hope my alums, well, if they hear it, they hear it. Because he was, I mean, his work, he's just, I'm not sure if obsessive is the right word, but he's just doesn't let any stone go unturned. There's so much he wanted to know, and I think at some point, not too far down the path of our relationship, he may have surpassed me in terms of what he knows about the Gemini and the Apollo programs. I mean, and that really made me so much more confident about the film and the outcome, and also knowing Damien's work and Josh's commitment to Damien's vision. But to have someone that is so much into the research side of it, and I knew that from his previous work. If I had worked with a screenwriter who hadn't done that, then I don't think the result could have been anything like the magnificence of this film.
For both of you, I would imagine during the writing process of both of your materials, you hit certain bridges that you're like, how the F am I going to cross this bridge? Or, you know what I mean? Like these difficult chapters. For both of you in the writing process, what were some of those big hurdles that you felt like, okay, how we got to figure this out?
I mean, I can guess, and I want him to say, but I think it's the Gemini 8 scenes, what you had to do there.
Oh yeah, I mean, one of the hardest things about both the Gemini and Apollo mission, and Apollo was always going to be a more emotional mission, but Gemini, it's just how to collapse and consolidate, and specifically how to make rendezvous and docking, which you see routinely in space movies now, how to show how challenging that was, how to demonstrate that in a way that is quite accurate. So that was, and all of the technical stuff, understanding it, figuring out how to consolidate, condense, the Gemini transcript is, 200, 300 pages. How am I going to pull, make 15 minutes a movie out of 300 pages? Even if I choose the most exciting parts of the Gemini mission, the docking and the spin, that still is, probably a good 100 pages,
what
to get
you
all
wrote
that.
For Mission Control.
Oh, and
what you wrote for Mission Control.
Yeah, and so we didn't have any columns for Mission Control. We didn't have that flight director loop. I didn't have that transcript. So I literally had to go sit down with Jerry Griffin, who had been in Mission Control, and talk through with him, literally, okay, who are the primary flight controllers? There are 9 of them. What does each of them say at each of these 5 moments that we want to dramatize? Let me write that and then come back to you and go iterative with you. Very challenging. But to me, the one thing I would say, and sorry I'm rambling a little bit, but this to me is a very good Jim story and shows how I think unique our partnership was. Neil is a challenging character. As Jim says, he's an emotionally tightly packaged individual. How do you get across what he's feeling on screen, even assuming, Ryan is going to bring so much to it and convey so much with so little, right? It's one of the things Ryan does so beautifully. We got to the moment where Neil hears about Apollo 1. How are we going to dramatize that? My first pass at that, we wanted to have a big emotional moment, and so I literally had Neil slamming the phone down on the receiver in anger and frustration and upset, right? And I sent that off to Jim, and Jim said, no way. Neil would have never done it, right? And I had to listen. I had to say, okay, he knows Neil. right? And if he says no way, then nobody's going to buy it. And if nobody buys it in the space community, then we're dead ducks, right? So what do I do? And so I said, how do I show the pain, right, in a way that is contained? And so I came up with this idea of, okay, what if he's totally contained here, and you're close in on him, and knowing that Ryan, you know, is so talented and could go black with his eyes. What if I stay here and then suddenly you hear a pop? And you look down and he's been holding a glass that he's been so trying to contain that he breaks it in his hand. And that shows just what he's feeling. And I sent that back to Jim and I said, what do you think? And he said,
I'm okay with that. Yeah,
so that to me, that kind of push and pull with Jim, with Mark, with Rick, you know, with all these other technical advisors, that was unbelievably key.
Did you want to say anything about the writing of the book?
I mean, by the time Neil gave me the approval, which took a couple of years, I was so ready for Bear. I mean, I don't really remember a difficult point. What the difficulty was, I couldn't talk about anything else. I couldn't listen to anything. You know, at dinner, that's all I talked. My family gave me, my wife gave me this rule that I could only talk about Neil once per meal, but she didn't give me a time restriction. So you know, I just was so consumed with this, and I think Josh probably got that way with the script as well. You just get so consumed with it. So I mean, once I got the permission to write, I don't remember any particularly, you know, tough point where I found it hard to write. I was ready to go.
Sure. Congratulations. Thank you so much for giving me your time, especially since you're already about to walk away. Again, thanks.
You bet.